I dropped my pregnant daughter off at a gas station in the middle of the woods in the pouring rain. I looked her in the eyes and said, "This is for your own good. Call yourself a taxi. And don't call me again." I drove away with her screams in my rearview mirror and my unborn grandchild somewhere inside that shaking, furious girl. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Keep reading before you judge me. Then tell me if I'm a monster, or a father who finally did what had to be done. My name is Frank Turner. I'm 68 years old, a retired mechanic from Ohio, a widower, and, God help me, the reluctant grandfather to a child that almost became a pawn in a very dangerous game. My daughter Amy is 26. She used to be the softest part of my life, the reason I worked double shifts, the reason my knees ache today from all those years bent over engines. Her mother died when she was 14, and from that moment on, it was just the two of us against the world. At least that's what I believed, right up until the day she brought home Tyler. The first time I met him, he came into my driveway like he already owned the place. Beat-up Dodge Charger, illegal tint, bass rattling the windows of my little ranch house. He stepped out in a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill, and smiled at me with that easy charm that makes people forget to lock their doors. "Mr. Turner," he said, sticking out his hand. "Sir, I've heard so much about you." He said sir like it was a joke. Amy came around the hood of the car, eyes shining in a way that made my stomach twist. She'd never looked at me like that. She'd never looked at anyone like that. "Dad, this is Tyler," she said, slipping her arm through his. "He's starting his own business, marketing and branding. He's really smart." I worked 40 years fixing engines and transmissions for a living. I never met a man who talked as much as Tyler and said so little. He talked through dinner about investors and networking and scaling. Every time I asked a concrete question, "What do you actually sell? What's your product? Where's your office?" he changed the subject to how old-fashioned the 9-to-5 grind was and how the real money was in leveraging other people's time. Amy watched him like he hung the moon. Later that night, when I was doing dishes, she came beside me with a towel. "So?" she asked. "What do you think?" I looked at the water, the soap bubbles, the plate in my hand. "He's confident." Her shoulders relaxed just a bit. "He's going places, Dad. Not like this town. Not like your shop. My shop. The place that had put food in her mouth, braces on her teeth, and a roof over her head." I swallowed the hurt and told myself I was being sensitive, that she was just young. Tyler proposed 6 months later, in some rooftop restaurant in the city, the kind where the menu doesn't have prices. I knew because Amy called me afterward, crying happy tears, telling me how he'd rented the whole place just for us, and how she'd never felt so taken care of. I asked how he'd paid for it. She got quiet. "Why do you always have to ruin things, Dad?" The first time she asked me for money for Tyler's business, it was just a little boost. $5,000. He'd pay me back in 3 months, guaranteed, once his clients came through. They needed equipment, software, licenses. I said no. Amy stopped answering my calls for 2 weeks. When she finally showed up, she stood in my doorway with dark circles under her eyes, and her shoulders slumped. "I guess I was wrong about you," she said. "Mom would have helped." I felt that like a knife. She knew exactly where to aim. I wrote the check. 3 months came and went. No repayment. When I asked about it, Tyler laughed. "Come on, sir. That's seed money. Don't be so old school. Think long term." I am old school. I think long term. That's why those numbers burned in my mind every night when I stared at the ceiling, wondering where the hell I'd gone wrong. Then came the pregnancy. She told me in my kitchen, hands shaking, face pale. I saw terror first, then forced excitement. "Isn't it amazing, Dad? You're going to be a grandpa." I hugged her. I meant it. Whatever I thought of Tyler, the idea of a baby, her baby, stirred something protective and fierce in me. But in the weeks that followed, it became clear. The baby wasn't a blessing to Tyler. It was leverage. He started showing up more, helping himself to my fridge, talking louder, pushing more. "You should put the house in Amy's name," he said one evening while Amy rested on the couch rubbing her growing stomach. "You know, for estate purposes. Liability. God forbid something happens to you, sir. You don't want probate court gobbling this place up." "I have a will," I replied. "Everything goes to Amy." He smiled, slow. "Wills can be contested. Trusts are better. Especially if, say, you can't make decisions for yourself anymore." Amy looked away. That told me enough. I wasn't the only one he'd pitched this to. "Not happening," I said. The smile dropped from his face just for a heartbeat, and I saw what was underneath. Cold, calculating, annoyed that his mark didn't go quietly. After that, the real war started. Amy began to echo his words. "You're not getting any younger, Dad. It's safer if the house is in my name. You forget things. You mix up your meds. What if you fall?" "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Well, then maybe we have to rethink what kind of relationship we have," she snapped. "Because you're not just doing this to me, you're doing it to your grandchild." I wanted to yell to tell her she was being used, but every time I raised my voice, she shut down, turned away, and Tyler stepped between us with that peacemaker act. "Sir, you're stressing her out," he'd say. "You want her to miscarry?" Guilt, fear, manipulation. He deployed them like weapons. The night everything truly shifted, it wasn't something dramatic. It was quiet, almost small. Amy left her phone on my coffee table when she went to use the bathroom. It lit up with a text from Brett Biz. "Brett, how's ATM Dad? Paperwork signed yet?" My heart thudded. Another message popped up. "Brett, dude, if you land that house, you're set. Free equity. Just play the grandpa card harder." I know I shouldn't have, but I picked up the phone. My hands shook as I scrolled back through the thread. Screenshots of my property records. Listed equity. Tyler bragging about how the old man is soft as butter, how he'd lock down the asset before the kid comes. They joked about Plan B being to push for a guardianship if I started slipping mentally. My house, my mind, my future, all bullet points in their plan. When Amy came back and saw me holding her phone, she went white, then red. "What are you doing?" she snapped, grabbing for it. "What is this?" I asked, my voice low. "Who is Brett? Why is he calling me ATM Dad?" Her eyes flicked across the screen. For a second I saw terror. Then her face hardened. "You had no right," she said. "You're invading my privacy." "I'm invading your privacy?" I held the phone up. "He's planning my life like I'm a walking bank account. And you told him everything, my mortgage balance, the value of this house. Why did you tell him that, Amy?" "Because I thought he was a friend," she shot back. "Tyler said—" "Tyler, always Tyler." She snatched the phone away. "You're twisting it. You don't understand our life. You never have." Maybe I didn't, but I understood the look in her eyes when she said it. She wasn't just angry. She was afraid of losing Tyler, losing what little security she thought she had. That night, after they left in a storm of curses and slammed doors, I sat at my kitchen table until my legs went numb. My wife's photograph watched from the wall, her soft smile now a reproach. "I tried," I whispered to her. "I tried to give our girl everything." The next day I called an old friend of mine, Sam. We'd served together back in '75. He'd gone on to become a cop, then a private investigator. "Frank," he said, "you sound like you swallowed a live grenade." "Maybe I did," I replied. "I need a favor. I need you to look into someone." Tyler had a record. Of course he did. Nothing that put him behind bars for long. Suspicious business ventures, small claims, a DUI, 2 restraining orders filed, and then mysteriously dropped by women who'd apparently changed their minds. paycheck protection loans during the pandemic that never lined up with any documented employees. "He's a parasite," Sam said, his voice grim. "And your daughter is his new host." He emailed me everything. It felt wrong, having a digital dossier on the man my daughter loved. But as I flipped through page after page, one thing became painfully clear. If I didn't act, my grandchild would be born into this disaster. And Tyler had no intention of stopping until he'd bled me dry. Weeks passed. Amy barely spoke to me. When she did, it was transactional. "I need help with the car payment. I need money for prenatal vitamins. We're behind on rent." Each time Tyler was in the background, never making the ask himself, always letting her take the hit. I paid the medical bills. I paid for the car repair. But I stopped paying for everything else. Every dollar I handed over, I documented. Every text I saved. Every voicemail I stored in a folder. Sam visited one afternoon and raised an eyebrow at the stacks of paper. "You planning to write your memoirs or go to war?" he asked. "Maybe both," I said. One Tuesday, Amy came by alone. No Tyler. She sank into my recliner with a sigh, one hand on her belly. "I'm tired, Dad," she said. "Everything hurts." She looked so young then, so much like her mother that it pulled at something inside me. "You should be resting," I replied gently. "Has Tyler been helping?" She looked away. "He's under a lot of stress. You wouldn't understand." I almost let it go. Almost. But then I saw the faint bruise under her sleeve when she reached for the glass of water on the table. "Amy," I said softly, "what happened to your arm?" She tugged her sleeve down. "I bumped into a door." I had never wanted to hit a man so badly in my life. "Has Tyler ever put his hands on you?" I asked. Her eyes flashed. "Don't start. That's not a no." "I said don't start," she snapped, bolting to her feet. "You hate him. You've always hated him. You're just looking for excuses." "Amy, if he's hurting you—" "He's the father of my child," she screamed. "What do you expect me to do? Leave? Be a single mom in some dump apartment? I need him." Her voice cracked on that last word. Need. What she needed was safety, stability, a chance to remember who she was before this man rewrote her story. The next part is what you're going to hate me for. The part where I stopped being the nice, soft father she expected and became something harder. I made a plan. It started with a lie. I called Amy on a Friday afternoon, right before a storm front was supposed to roll in. "Can you and Tyler come out to the cabin tomorrow?" I asked. "I want to talk about the house, about making sure you and the baby are taken care of." There was a pause. "Are you serious?" she asked. "I'm serious," I said. "I've been thinking. Maybe you were right." I could hear Tyler's voice in the background, low and excited, feeding her lines. "We'll be there," she said. "What time?" 6, I replied. "I'll have dinner ready." My cabin isn't really a cabin. It's a small, older place I keep near a state park surrounded by woods about an hour from town. I built most of it myself back in my younger years. Amy used to love it as a little girl. Fireflies, bonfires, roasting marshmallows. It was the one place that still felt like ours. I called Sam after I hung up. "I need you to trust me," I told him. "That sentence never leads anywhere good," he said dryly. "What's the play?" "You said Tyler used fake PPP loans," I reminded him. "You said there were other things in his file that could be reopened." "Yeah," he replied slowly. "Why?" "Because I'm going to hand him to you," I said, "wrapped in a bow." We worked out the details. Sam contacted some people he knew in federal and state agencies, not friends, allies, people who hated scammers almost as much as he did. "You can't control what happens after," Sam warned me. Once we hand them the evidence, it's out of your hands. I know, I said, but I can control what happens to my house, to my grandchild. The day they were due to come out, it rained. Not a gentle drizzle. A pounding, relentless downpour that turned the dirt roads slick and the sky almost black. Tyler's car pulled up late. Of course it did. When they finally arrived, Amy was damp and shivering, her hair plastered to her face, mascara smudged. You couldn't have picked a nicer day, Tyler complained, slamming the car door. My traction control almost gave out on that last turn. If you'd gotten your tires changed like I told you, that wouldn't be a problem, I said mildly. He glared at me, then plastered on his grin. So, Frank, you ready to talk business? We ate in strained silence. Amy picked at her food, stomach too tight for much. Tyler ate like a man who'd never see another meal. Afterward, I pulled out a thin folder. I talked to a lawyer, I said, about setting up a trust, for Amy, for the baby, and about some other things. Tyler's eyes gleamed. Now we're talking. I laid the papers on the table. They were real documents drafted by a real attorney, but not the ones he thought. This one, I said, tapping the first page, names me as temporary guardian of the baby if, God forbid, anything happens to Amy in the first year. Amy frowned. What? Why would you? Because your life is unstable, I said gently. Because you're living with a man with a criminal record and no steady income. Because if something goes wrong, I don't want my grandchild ending up in the system. Tyler bristled. I've never hurt Amy, he said quickly. Too quickly. That's not what your file says, I replied. He stiffened. What file? I held his gaze. The one my friend Sam pulled. The police reports. The loan fraud. The harassed ex-girlfriends. The 2 women who filed restraining orders and then dropped them. You really thought nobody would ever look? Amy's fork clattered to her plate. What is he talking about, Tyler? He's digging up old lies, Tyler snapped. That's what. He's trying to poison you against me. I'm not poisoning her, I said calmly. I'm telling her what's already public record, and what the authorities are about to revisit. His eyes narrowed. What do you mean, revisit? I mean, I said, that the people you cheated to get those PPP loans, they never really forgot. And they're very interested in your new investments, especially the one you're trying to make out of my house. He pushed his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. You're bluffing. Am I? I slid another paper across the table. This is a formal notice that I've frozen any transfer of my property. The title is locked. The will is updated. There is nothing you can get from me, not by pressure, not by manipulation, not by using my daughter and my grandchild. He stared at me. For a brief moment, the charm dropped, and I saw the predator underneath. You think this is going to stop me? He said softly. You think she'll side with you? Old, lonely, judgmental you? He turned to Amy, shifting instantly into his wounded hero voice. You see what he's doing, babe? He asked. He's trying to control you. He's always tried to control you. He doesn't want you to have a life without him. He'd rather see you alone and broke than supported by the man you love. Amy's breath came in short gasps, her hand pressed to her stomach. Dad, she whispered, why are you doing this? Because he's using you, I said. Because you're in danger. Because I would burn every bridge in my life before I let this man ruin yours. She shook her head, tears spilling over. I can't do this, she said. I can't listen to you tear him apart. She stumbled to her feet. Tyler was immediately beside her, arm around her shoulders, playing the protector. We're leaving, he said. You can rot in this cabin with your paranoia. I stood too. Amy, I said quietly, I'm asking you to stay. Just for tonight. We can talk in the morning. Tyler can go back to town if he wants. I'll drive you to your doctor's appointment on Monday. We can— Stop, she cried. Stop acting like you care about the baby more than I do. You're trying to steal my child. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Tyler opened the cabin door and a gust of wet, cold air slammed into us. Come on, babe, he said. You don't need this. He doesn't get to control you anymore. Amy hesitated. Please, I said. Don't go with him. Not tonight. The roads are— I'm done listening to you, she cut in. If you won't help us, then stay out of our lives. She stepped out into the rain. That's when I did the thing everyone will say makes me unforgivable. I followed them out, keys already in my hand. Fine, I said. I'll drive you. We rode in silence down that dark road. Rain hammered the windshield. The wipers thudded back and forth, a metronome to my racing thoughts. Tyler sat in the front seat, smug. Amy sat in the back, one hand on her belly, staring out into the blackness. About 20 minutes from the cabin, there's a little gas station wedged between the highway and the forest. Old beat-up pumps, flickering lights, one security camera watching everything. I knew it well. I'd worked on the owner's truck for years. I pulled in and killed the engine. What are you doing? Tyler snapped. I got out, walked around and opened Amy's door. The rain slammed into us, cold and heavy. Amy, I said, my voice shaking for the first time that night. Get out. She looked up at me, confused. What? Get out, I repeated. Are you serious? Tyler leaned across her. You're dropping us here? In the middle of nowhere? You're insane. I ignored him. I focused on my daughter. You have your phone, I said. There's signal here. There are cameras. People. Call yourself a taxi. Call a friend. Call anyone you want. But you are not going back to that cabin with me, and you are not coming back to my house unless he is out of your life. Her face transformed. Shock, then hurt, then fury. Dad, she whispered, I'm pregnant. I know, I said. That's why I'm doing this now, before it gets worse. You're abandoning me, she said, voice rising. In the rain, at a gas station. What kind of father does that? The kind who ran out of soft options, I replied. The kind who knows that if you go back with him tonight, you will never leave him. Not until he takes everything from you, and I won't be here to pick up the pieces forever. I stepped back. Tyler shoved his door open and came around the car, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. You're going to regret this, he hissed. She'll never forgive you. And when this baby is born, you'll be the one on the outside. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll be alive with my conscience intact. I looked at Amy one last time. This is for your own good, I told her. Call yourself a taxi. Don't call me again. Then I got in the car and drove away. Her screams chased me down the highway. So did every instinct in my body telling me to turn around, scoop her up, apologize, bring her home, give in. I kept driving. Because what I didn't tell her was that I had already made a phone call of my own. To the gas station. To the owner I'd fixed trucks for who owed me a favor. I'd called him on my way down from the cabin just before we left. There's going to be a young pregnant woman dropped off at your place, I'd said. She'll be with a man at first, but I'm guessing he'll leave when he realizes he's not welcome. She's going to be scared and wet and furious. I need you to do 2 things. Keep your cameras rolling and, when she finally walks away from him, call this number. I gave him Sam's. He didn't ask questions. Some men know when a fellow father is at war. Tyler tried to follow me in his car. I knew he would. But what he didn't know was that Sam and a couple of unmarked vehicles were waiting 10 miles down the road, near the turnoff back to town. They pulled him over for a routine traffic violation. His taillight just happened to be cracked. One thing led to another. Outstanding questions turned into probable cause. His car, full of documents he shouldn't have had, did the rest. But Amy didn't know any of that when I left her at that gas station. All she knew was that the one person who'd always been her safety net had suddenly cut the rope. And that was exactly the point. Because sometimes, the only way to get someone to step out of the burning house is to make sure they know the door behind them is not going to stay open forever. What happened next? That's the part no one expected. 2 hours after I got home, my phone rang. It wasn't Amy, it was Sam. "She's safe," he said. "She's at the station. The owner gave her coffee. She's mad as hell at you, by the way." "Good," I said hoarsely. "What about him?" Sam exhaled. "He's in custody. They're charging him with fraud for starters. There's enough to hold him. Maybe more once the feds sift through everything." I sat down heavily in my recliner, the old springs groaning. "My daughter?" I asked. "She's talking to a social worker," he replied. "And to a victim advocate. Remember those restraining orders he had? They're connecting some dots. She might not be ready to call herself that yet, but other people are seeing the pattern." I closed my eyes. Relief and guilt battled in my chest. "Don't call her," Sam said gently. "Not tonight. Let other people be the good guys for a while. You're the villain in her story today. That's okay. Villains get things done." For 3 days I heard nothing from Amy. I got updates from Sam, not details, just bullet points. She was staying in a women's shelter temporarily. She'd agreed to talk to a counselor. She'd given a statement about some of Tyler's more recent business activities. On the 4th day, a knock came at my door. When I opened it, Amy stood there in one of my old hoodies, face pale, hair pulled into a messy bun. Her belly was more noticeable now somehow, like the baby had decided to announce itself. Rain drizzled behind her. She didn't step in. "I hate you," she said. Her voice was hoarse from crying. "I've never hated anyone so much in my life." I nodded. "I know." She swallowed. "They showed me things," she said. "Messages, the other women, the loans, stuff I didn't know." "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I thought you were just being controlling," she continued. "I thought you wanted me alone, miserable, dependent on you. Like he said." "I know," I repeated. Tears filled her eyes. "But you still left me," she whispered. "At that gas station, in the rain." "Yeah," I said. "I did." "Why?" she asked. "Why like that? Why so cruel?" "Because if I'd brought you home," I said, "you would have gone back to him in a week, maybe less. You would have called him, begged him, apologized. And as long as you believed my door was always open, no matter how bad things got, you'd never stand on your own 2 feet. You'd never see him for who he was. You'd always think, if it gets rough, Dad will fix it." I took a breath, the words scraping me raw as they came out. "I needed you to know that I couldn't fix this one for you. That some choices are yours alone. That loving you doesn't mean making everything painless." She stared at me. The silence between us felt like it might swallow the whole house. Then she stepped inside. "Can I sit down?" she asked. I moved aside. She sank into the couch like a marionette whose strings had been cut. "I'm living at some shelter," she said. "They say it's safe. The food's terrible. The women are different. I don't belong there." "You belong wherever you need to be safe," I replied. She ignored that. "They asked if I had somewhere else I could go," she continued. "Family, a friend, someone who'd take me in if I agreed to some rules, safety plans, counseling, financial classes, all that crap." She looked at me, jaw tight. "I told them no," she said, "because I was still angry, because I didn't want you to be right." I waited. "Then last night," she said slowly, "the baby kicked, hard. I was lying on that thin mattress, listening to some woman in the next bed crying in her sleep, and I thought, if I go back to him, What kind of life does this little person get? She put a hand on her belly. He would have used the baby, she whispered. The way he used me. He would have used both of us against you, against anyone who tried to help. I know that now. She looked up again, eyes red. The counselor asked me today, is there anyone in your life who sets boundaries with you even when it hurts? Anyone who says no because they want what's best for you, not what's easiest for them? Her voice cracked. I said, my dad, she finished. I felt something in my chest loosen, not joy, not yet, but something like a knot starting to slacken. What do you need from me, Amy? I asked. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, an old childish gesture that made my heart ache. I need a place to stay, she said. I need help, but not the way before. Not money tossed at problems. I need you to not let me manipulate you, even when I try, because I know I will. Honesty. Hard, brutal honesty. And the baby? I asked. What do you want for your child? She closed her eyes. I want them to have a grandfather, she said. One who doesn't give up on them even when their mother is a mess. She opened her eyes and met mine. But I also want them to have a mother who isn't a coward, she added. So I'll stay at the shelter until the program says it's okay for me to leave. I'll do the classes, the therapy. I'll testify against him if they need me to. She took a shaky breath. After that, she said, if the offer's still open, maybe I could move in here, temporarily, on your terms, not mine. My throat closed up. I could only nod. I already talked to a lawyer, I managed after a moment. I set up a trust for the baby. Their future is protected. College, health care, housing if they need it when they're older. But you don't get access to that money, Amy. Not me either. It's locked. There's a board. People I trust. You'll have to provide for yourself. She nodded slowly. Good, she said, surprising me. If you put it in my hands right now, I'd probably just give it to the next Tyler who looks at me twice. We sat in silence for a while, the rain tapping softly at the windows. She fell asleep eventually, curled on my couch, one hand still on her stomach. I watched her breathe. For the first time in years, she looked like my little girl again. Months passed. Tyler took a plea deal, the evidence Sam handed over. Bank statements, loan applications, the texts from Amy's phone that she eventually consented to share, piled up too high for any slick lawyer to climb. He'll be gone for a good long while. Fraud, identity theft, some other charges I can't talk about because there are other victims, not just my family. I don't celebrate another man's imprisonment, but I sleep easier knowing he can't charm some other woman's daughter quite so easily. Amy kept her word. She finished the program. She worked part-time at a diner through her last trimester, waddling between tables with a determination that made the waitresses look at her with something like respect. She still lives with me for now, but under house rules we agreed on with her counselor present. She pays a small rent. She goes to therapy. She takes parenting classes. When she slips, stays out too late, flirts with some shady guy, lies, I don't yell. I enforce consequences. The baby, my grandson Noah, came into this world on a cold November morning. Amy let me be in the room. When the nurse placed that squirming, red-faced little bundle in her arms, she looked at me with tears rolling down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. You don't owe me an apology for being lost, I said. Just don't stay lost. Now, when I hold Noah and feel his tiny fingers curl around mine, I think about all the ways this could have gone differently. If I'd kept paying. If I'd given in and signed over the house. If I'd let Tyler stay in our lives for just one more month, one more year. Would Amy still be here? Would Noah? Or would I be living in some apartment, watching from a distance as my daughter slid further into a life designed by someone who never loved her, just loved what she could provide? Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and Noah is finally asleep, Amy will stand in the kitchen doorway and watch me make tea. "Do you ever regret it?" she asks. "Dropping me there, in the rain?" I always answer the same way. "Every day," I say, "and not at all." Because both are true. I regret that my choices, my failures, my blind spots ever put her in a position where that gas station felt like the only road left. I regret that I didn't see Tyler for what he was sooner, that I wasn't a better example of boundaries when she was younger. But I don't regret drawing a line. I don't regret choosing my grandchild's future over my need to be liked in the present. Revenge, if you want to call it that, wasn't just about seeing Tyler in handcuffs or watching the smugness drain from his face when the judge read the sentence. It was about flipping the script he'd written for us. He planned to isolate Amy, take my house, and control the baby's life by controlling hers. Instead, he lost his freedom, and Amy gained hers. As for the house, it's in a trust now. When I'm gone, it doesn't go to my daughter outright. It becomes a home base for Noah if he needs it, a place no charming parasite can touch. Sometimes I think about that night in the woods, the rain, the gas station lights glowing through the trees. The old me, the one who solved every problem with a checkbook and a warm hug, died there too. What walked away was someone colder, but also, maybe, someone truer. A father who finally learned that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just fear wearing a friendly mask. So here's my question to you. If you've read this far, was I right to drop my pregnant daughter at that gas station and force her to choose a different life? Or did I cross a line no father ever should?
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.